I am Councilor Green. I'm joined by Councilor Hogan, Councilor Driscoll, and Councilor Schultz. This is the budget hearing for the Parking Violations Bureau. Leah, I'll turn it over to you.
All right, thank you, Councilor. Leah Whitmer, I'm the Director and Supervising Hearing Examiner of the Parking Violations Bureau. You are all here for my intro spiel at the last one, so I'll spare you that and just jump right into the parking violations budget. Just starting with, again, I guess I will reiterate one point that, we've been working to rebuild the Parking Violations Bureau kind of as a standalone bureau. When Finance did the restructuring and created the City Payment Center, the parking was all absorbed by that restructuring. And it's been great to streamline all of the payment and collection process through the City Payment Center, but makes a lot of sense to spin off the adjudication side and fold that in again to more of a municipal violations bureau that's handling the hearing requests for tickets and appeals of those hearing decisions. So I've been working throughout this whole budget year. Last year is when we started to implement the process. I've been working closely with the City Payment Center and Finance Department to do this, and we've been reabsorbing different tasks, slowly based on the capacity. Like came up in the finance budget hearing that Vicki and Brad mentioned. We've had great collaboration, and Vicki had 2 staff that was predominantly handling the parking adjudication functions within the City Payment Center. So I had 1 clerk too in my budget, and then I absorbed that other person from her as well, which was an info aid position. And then when we shifted it over to the parking budget specifically, we promoted them to a clerk too. Right now, since one of those employees moved up to help you all out, I have 1 vacancy that I'm filling for that clerk 2 position, but I did absorb that other person officially from the City Payment Center. So it's been a really great just collaboration and working with them. Like I said, we continue to collaborate. We do the bulk printing over there every day. They're still helping with some tasks, including the scanning of all of our documents when the cashiers and info aides have downtime, a half an hour, a day or something. Not as much now during a payment month, but predominantly in other months, they'll, scan or input tickets. So as you're aware, the parking checkers have automated ticket devices that generate like the little printed parking tickets. Those go directly into the AIM system. The parking tickets issued by police through the SHAPE program and other programs are handwritten tickets, right? So at some point, switching everybody to handheld devices, I know, is definitely on the finance and police department's radar, which would just be a huge benefit. It'll be a lot of money up front, but I think it's going to get us where we need to be in the long run, because we have people physically inputting those tickets by hand now.
Do you know how many are handheld and how many are handwritten? Like what percentage of the tickets that we're getting are the handwritten kind?
I don't have percentages.
So I
am still an Ames novice, I will admit. So I've been spending a lot of time, with Ames and the company that runs that, trying to learn. And, I've made some slight changes and make larger changes as I'm kind of reviewing and revamping the adjudication process and that process as a whole. I found a great piece of data right in the historical electronic parking drive that had it all broken up by police tickets, parking checkers, what ones were the SHAPE program and this. And, my goal is to get there. I just don't know how to spit that data out into that format. So, it's something I'm working on. And when I have that breakdown, I'm happy to share it.
Okay.
I just don't, it's not something that I have at my fingertips right now.
Yeah, not exact percentage, but do you know ballpark?
I know ballpark the number of tickets issued, but that's the extent of my knowledge, and I included that in the activity indicators there, with my estimate for just under 60,000 for this year, which we're still, rebounding from COVID, essentially. It's a couple of factors in that, less tickets are being issued due to staffing with the parking checkers, with the police, and then less people in and around downtown, during the COVID time. We had a brief moratorium on some parking downtown, so we're slowly rebuilding. Prior years, the tickets have been as high as over 100,000 a year. So, I think we're going back up, but it's, rebuilding to get back to that. But I can definitely dig in. I actually have an email and call into the Ames team to ask them to help me extract that information.
So will you be, will you
Yeah.
be operationally control of the parking checkers? I mean,
No, those will remain under SPD.
they're
Yep.
going to, so
Yeah.
you're just going to tabulate the
I handle
tickets.
just the adjudication side, so very similar if you think about it in the context of like with the BAA. Codes does their thing, they're issuing the violations. We're just handling the adjudication side when somebody wants to contest a ticket. So, parking used to be a standalone bureau where they did everything. They collected the money, did the adjudication. When they restructured the finance department and created the city payment center, they absorbed, for the BAA, we kept all the payments through them in collection efforts, but with parking, they absorbed everything. And then it was kind of the perfect storm, if you will, in that COVID hit. So we weren't doing much with parking, right? There weren't many tickets being issued. We have, as far as the personal services go, we have 4 right now part-time hearing examiners that do the hearings, and then John Black, who is actually falls under the
Law department?
contractual, well, in our part, he's under the contractual and other expenses, that 32,554 line, because he's 2 days with parking and 3 days with law. So he was the only one that continued doing ex parte hearings during that time. So it kind of, stood up on its own enough to keep functioning, but, it was clear that it was time to bring it back to the adjudication side on its own. It made sense to fold it in with the BAA since we had just built out that adjudicative process. And my responsibility as the director is still, encompassed fully under the BAA budget. In a perfect world, maybe it would be split, but, like I said, this is all new. We're slowly building it out and trying to fit things in where it needs to be. But we just handle, if you get a parking ticket, you can contest that just like you could contest a code violation. You request a hearing. Right now, we're only doing ex parte hearings, meaning they're on the papers. You submit your evidence and your written defense, and our hearing examiners review that, and then issue a decision, and then you can also appeal. So that's the side that we're handling. And then there's, there's collaboration, on things like collections, booting. We're working on collaborative efforts right now with API and the City Payment Center on revamping the payment plan process, and eventually we'll take ownership of that, and we'll have, pads right at our service desk for constituents to come in and apply electronically right there, or, on the new website, they'll be able to do it through that forum. So there's still some tasks that the City Payment Center is doing. Like I said, right now it's predominantly the scanning, the ticket inputting. They're still handling payment plans, and then up until yesterday, they were fielding all of the phone calls. So it's an incredibly high volume of constituent outreach, whether it's over the phone, in person, email, or physical mail. 1 clerk is not enough to cut it. 2 is not. That's why I'm asking for the additional staff. And my goal right now is to bring on some of those positions as temporary positions to get me through until, hopefully you approve it and the next budget gets passed and we get to July and I can hire them. But we cannot manage the volume with the current staffing. And I think, I was looking at the historical data from years passed, and, you know, the budget used to be, you know, in fiscal year 20, the adopted budget was 757,107, and the actual was just over $500,000, and then it dropped way down due to COVID. But all years prior to that, it was over $800,000. So when you look at my budget jump, you know, this year to last year, it is significant. But I'm just, you know, the adjudication process really fell by the wayside for, you know, a plethora of reasons. And we're trying to, like I said, review, add in, my original version of my budget had fewer positions. And then as we've continued to absorb responsibilities back from the city payment center, I went back to Tim and his team and said, I need more people. I mean, the volume of calls in one day recently was over 150 calls, you know, which is why I need those info aid positions. We constantly have people reaching out right now and saying, you know, we're calling and we're not getting a response. I had the IT reach out to the school district and wipe the voicemail because there were thousands of voicemails left in there from the amnesty efforts, right? So we couldn't even get to people's most recent voicemails. We're directing more people through email, which is a faster way to communicate how to contest a ticket. Eventually, we'll have it all up on the website. People will be able to submit their request right online. That'll help streamline it. But right now, you know, I've personally taken over managing the email for right now. And then, like I said, I've cross-trained some of my BAA staff to help with people walking in so that we're fully staffed from 8 to 5 and during everybody's lunches. They're helping. All four of us right now, there's 4 total staff. We're all handling calls, and we're still missing a large volume of calls since on-forwarding from the city payment center yesterday. So these additional clerk positions will also help. Right now, like I mentioned, all the hearings are still ex parte, meaning they're on the papers. A lot of people still want in-person hearings, and you know, I'm happy to be able to do that once we have the capacity. We have not been, I've not had enough staff to roll that out, because to schedule hearings, I need staff to schedule them, to create a calendar, to send the notices, to prep the files. So a lot more goes into it than just handing, you know, your hearing request form to a hearing examiner. So once we have some additional, hopefully fill that one full-time position I have and bring on some temporary staff, we will roll out either virtual or in-person hearings, again, depending on where we're at with COVID, and then continue to give people the option for either. You know, I think both have their benefits there as well. So that's really where I need the additional clerk positions. The info aid positions are just to help with all of the communication from people, right? If we're issuing 50, 60 plus thousand parking tickets, a lot of those people have questions, right? So even if it's just, how do I contest this? There's a little bit of a lag in when a ticket goes into the system to when it'll show up on Invoice Cloud if you're trying to pay it. And additionally, with the handwritten tickets, the police department physically mails us the ticket, and then, like I said, we physically have to put it in. So without entering it, it's not going to show up. So just fielding a lot of questions that I think, you know, we can work on streamlining, and then if we don't have an existing solution, we can make a plan in the next few years for solutions on how to get there. It's possible I may not need to fill all of these positions once we absorb everything, but kind of until we get into a good groove, it's hard to tell. So I wanted to make sure that we had the capacity, because I don't want the BAA to fall behind in the process of trying to get the parking adjudication up to speed. I'm also asking for some additional funding for the hearing examiners. Like I said, right now we have 4. I know it says 3 on there, but it's actually 4 in the addition to John Black. So that fills us with, you know, if you consider each day of the week a morning and an afternoon slot, that fills us with 8 slots. I want to fill it fully, so we've got all 10 slots filled. Right now we're about 45 to 60 plus days behind in adjudications. We just started with those that people requested a hearing in the beginning of March. So I would like to keep decisions reviews and decisions within 30 days is always my goal. And then, you know, explore the possibility of, if you walk in, counselor, to request, you know, to contest a ticket, and we have you fill out the form, that the hearing examiner, you could meet with them right then and get it decided and walk away with a decision. If you have to pay, you can go right across the hall to make a payment. So again, just better, more effective and efficient constituent services across the board. And I think that the staffing that I'm asking for will help me do that. And again, if you compare it to prior years, pre-COVID and pre-restructuring, I think it's still, you know, in line with that when you account for that the payment collection side of things is still with the city payment center.
Yeah, quick one. I remember
Yeah.
I'd reached out to, I believe Brad O'Connor earlier in the year, because I had some constituent complaints about how you used to be able to put in your license plate instead of the ticket number, and you could find out what was, and they said they would revert it back. Do you know if that is
You can,
implemented yet?
you can search either way.
You can do it by license plate
You
again,
can do it by
right?
plate, yep. Again, sometimes there's that lag if we have not input the ticket. And in those cases, I ask people for the physical ticket. And then with that physical ticket, I can input it. It'll automate in
So
the
there will
system.
always be a physical ticket.
I mean, someday I would love for no physical tickets. If everybody has the parking checker devices,
Yeah.
those are directly connected to the AIM software, and those automatically populate in there, so we don't have to do anything. We can reprint a copy of that ticket just as it looks. I can reprint a copy of a physical police ticket, but it's going to look like a parking checker ticket and not the police ticket. And another issue really with both is just, you know, human error. On the handwritten tickets, is that a D or a P? You know, I don't know. Did they check every single box that they have to check to make it, you know, a proper ticket? Or if they missed a component, it's facially defective, and if somebody contests it, we have to dismiss. Now, there are still errors that arise with the handhelds. For instance, if you plug in somebody's car and it's already in our AIM system, that the handheld device is pulling from AIM. So if you put the color of the car in wrong, the next time you go to write a ticket for that plate, it's going to automatically pull the car as blue, what you put in the last time. So if you're not physically double checking and changing it, it's easy to still have facially defective tickets, which would be dismissed, but there is less risk of human error with those devices. So long way of answering that, yes, you can search by ticket or plate, but we do field a lot of questions about, hey, I can't find my ticket in the system. Let me see. I tried with the activity indicators, like I said, last year I just really kept them the same. This year I tried to tweak them. You know, I think as I've been doing for the BAA, as I get a better grasp on the software, I'll be able to build this out to make it a little more, you know, drill down a little bit more for you. But now you can see, you know, the ticket numbers are going back up. I anticipate, you know, 80,000. That's just me picking a number for next year. I think based on the numbers pre-COVID, that it's likely we'll get at or around close to that. And, you know, as we discussed, more tickets means more hearings. You know, right now everything is a mail hearing or an ex parte hearing, but I anticipate soon that once we have the staffing capacity, we'll go back to offering that live option, whether it's in person or virtual. And then the appeals. Right now, the appeals panel, we have not convened one since last June. You know, a lot of that is just, you know, we did one in June. I went out on parental leave. I've been trying to do another one, but there's all, you know, I've been trying to just sort through and get a grasp on everything else. We were attempting to schedule one in May, but you need at least 3 of the hearing examiners to sit on the panel for each case. And so you really need at least 4 of them. Because if they did the underlying hearing, they can't sit on the appeals panel, and it's hard to coordinate people's schedules. Most of them are practicing attorneys. So we're going to push this one out to June, and then I anticipate doing them quarterly, just like I do with the BAA. So aligning them in those months of July, October, January, and April. So by next year, we'll be back on track. And it's just, again, due to the the restructuring, COVID, the flood that finance experienced, that we just and just the nature of most of these are physical paper forms that people are submitting, or sometimes they're just mailing in their little tiny tickets, that when everything was combined into one, we're still getting through a large backlog due to all of that. So unfortunately, some people have been waiting a long time, but we're getting caught up on just the underlying hearings. Like I said, we're up through the beginning of March, and once we get through this upcoming appeals panel, we'll be caught up on appeals and have no lingering ones, and then we'll schedule them out quarterly from there. So those are the big points I wanted to make. I also just wanted to address, I know the city auditor over there brought up a couple of questions at the end of the finance hearing, so I just wanted to address liens. In the context, I kind of explained the judgment lien process for the BAA. It would be the same here. So to file a judgment and then transcript it as a lien on the property, you'd be paying $51, and the volume is thousands. So it's not really a feasible option here. What they were doing before, as part of the payment plan process, they were having the person sign a confession of judgment, which is has some legal loopholes in it, so we're not going to move forward with that. And then for those judgments, they were filing those if the person asked for the payment plan. That's why we don't file a lien in every single case for these. But I think as we're working through and we're working with the collection agencies and just ironing out our adjudication process, that will increase the collection efforts as a whole across it, and that these can be rolled forward. You also brought up interstate relationships, which is something that actually I've been exploring recently as well. Right now, Ames automatically connects with and pulls information if you're registered if your car is registered in New York State. So we pull that information. We know who owns the car. That's what populates in our system. That's where we get the name and address to send you all those notices that I referenced earlier. If it's an out-of-state plate, we're not getting that information, so we're not sending you any additional notices. You still got the original ticket, so you're still responsible, but we can't follow up with you in the way that we can for others. So we're exploring, reaching out, and researching whether we have the ability to connect with other states' DMVs, legally, whether we can do that, and then can our system, Ames, the software we're using, is that something that they have the capability of doing? And if they don't, what other options may we have? So that's something we're currently exploring. And then just the time limits, I think that Vicki explained that well, that there are state and federal limits for collections. The collection agency has its own threshold, and then there are state and federal limits. I think as we're going through and cleaning up the backlog of everything that we have in the system, for instance, right now there's about 1,500 pending adjudication cases going back to 2019. Some of those are just, what did it get entered in the system, right? So a lot of it just needs to be cleaned up. The same thing with payments coming in. Sometimes if you make a payment online or over the phone, it doesn't match up directly with the case. So we're just working to clean up those things, and I think that will help us really be able to focus on the collection effort within the time limits that are appropriate based on those state and federal guidelines. So that's my kind of overview. I'm happy to answer any specific questions.
Good.
She doesn't give us a chance to answer any questions.
Love the
Covers
details.
everything.
Exactly.
All right,
She's very thorough.
so I think we're all set. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you.